The first light appeared just after dusk, when the heat of the August day had finally drained from the streets of Lubbock, and the sky above the plains settled into a deep, cloudless black. A man closing his backyard gate caught the glow out of the corner of his eye. At first, he thought it was a plane coming in low, but the light broke into a sequence of smaller points, each one bright and sharply defined, moving in a perfect arc. He stepped forward, one hand braced on the fence as the formation swept overhead in complete silence. There was no engine, no wind, not even the faint hum that accompanied passing aircraft. Just four glowing shapes drifting across the sky with a precision that didn't feel natural. By the time he called for his wife, the lights had already slipped beyond the rooftops, leaving behind only the echo of a moment he couldn't explain. A few houses away, 3 Texas Tech professors sat in the backyard of one of their homes, talking quietly while the cicadas droned around them. One of the men lifted his glass, paused, and stared upward. The others followed his gaze. A chain of luminous objects glided across the sky, bright, steady, bluish-white, traveling faster than any plane but without the blur or streak a fast-moving aircraft should have produced. The men stood up so quickly their chairs scraped across the concrete. One grabbed binoculars from a nearby table, but the lights were already shifting, turning slightly as a unit before fading into the horizon. The men exchanged stunned looks. They were scientists, rational, grounded, skeptical, and yet none of them could fit what they had seen into any framework they trusted. They agreed to describe the objects individually to avoid influencing each other, but their accounts matched almost word for word. Across town, a 19-year-old Texas Tech freshman named Carl Hart was tinkering with his camera on the back porch, practicing nighttime exposures. He heard shouting from a neighbor's yard and looked up. A second formation drifted overhead, not rushed or chaotic, but controlled, smooth, deliberate. Carl's instinct took over. He lifted the camera, adjusted the lens, and snapped a photograph just before the lights vanished behind the houses. He didn't know whether he had captured anything. When the film developed the next day, 4 crescent-shaped lights stared back at him, crisp and aligned exactly as he remembered. The photograph was too clear, too sharp, too structured to dismiss. As the story spread, people across Lubbock began reporting their own encounters. Students walking home from late study sessions described the lights passing overhead in complete silence. A couple driving along a dark stretch of road said the formation crossed above their car at such a low altitude they instinctively crouched even though nothing made a sound. A woman folding laundry behind her house felt an odd change in the air before the objects appeared, as though the night itself had shifted its weight. She watched the glowing shapes glide straight over her backyard, uniform and unwavering, moving with a purpose she couldn't begin to guess. Local newspapers filled with accounts from witnesses who had never met and had no reason to fabricate anything. Their descriptions aligned almost perfectly. Same color, same shape, same steady glow. People described the objects as bright but never blinding, silent yet somehow distinct in their presence. Skeptics suggested the lights were birds reflecting the new street lamps, but residents who saw the objects up close rejected that explanation immediately. Birds didn't travel in geometric precision. Birds didn't stay uniformly bright. Birds didn't shift formation mid-flight with the smoothness of a machine. Military officials from Reese Air Force Base began looking into the reports quietly. They interviewed witnesses, examined Hart's photographs, and reviewed radar logs and flight schedules. Nothing placed aircraft in the sky at the times people had reported the lights. No training flights, no experiments, no classified tests. The Air Force kept its findings close, offering no public conclusions, but witnesses could sense that officials were interested in more than they let on. As the nights passed, the lights returned again and again. People began gathering on the outskirts of town, parking their cars along dirt roads, climbing onto hoods, waiting for another formation to appear. Some nights, the sky remained empty. Other nights, the lights emerged in a slow, sweeping curve that made people fall silent where they stood. Teenagers who had planned to laugh and joke found themselves watching in complete stillness as the formation rearranged itself mid-flight, shifting position with an intelligence that felt unmistakable. By early September, the appearances grew less frequent. One rancher outside town reported seeing a formation move north just before dawn, silent and steady, almost brushing the tops of the mesquite trees. A traveling salesman claimed he saw the lights from the highway on his way toward Amarillo, gliding across the open plains with the ease of something unconcerned with wind or gravity. But after that, the sightings dwindled, like whatever had passed through the Texas sky had finished whatever brought it there. When the Air Force finally released a public explanation, it was brief and dismissive. Officials claimed the lights were plovers, small white birds whose bellies reflected the new lights of the city. Residents who had watched the formations up close reacted with disbelief. The silence, the speed, the shape, the precision, none of it could be reconciled with the idea of birds. Even the professors who had first reported the sightings rejected the explanation immediately. Carl Hart's photographs spread across the country within weeks. Analysts studied the images and found no evidence of tampering or reflection. They were too consistent, too clean, too similar to each other. For decades, the photographs would remain among the most compelling documented images of unexplained aerial objects. The people who lived in Lubbock that summer carried the memory with them for the rest of their lives. They remembered the stillness of the night, the glow of the lights, the certainty that whatever they were seeing moved with intention. Some believed they had witnessed technology far ahead of anything humans had created. Others believed they had glimpsed visitors from somewhere far beyond Earth. And some simply felt humbled, knowing the sky had shown them something that refused to fit into any ordinary explanation. Even now, on quiet nights when the wind settles across the plains and the darkness stretches wide and unbroken, a few long-time residents still step onto their porches and look upward, remembering how the lights once drifted silently over Lubbock and disappeared without a trace. Thank you for listening to The Lantern's Tale. Subscribe for more true stories, if you dare.